guys, I just wanted to say that I am not a professional and this is all just lived experience. So the advice I'm giving, just take it or leave it. This is just knowledge I've gained from going to therapy and psychoeducation, but obviously I recommend going to therapy and following your therapist's advice. I wanted to share today kind of 3 main takeaways from ERP. I live with OCD, more specifically PURO, which is mainly mental symptoms, so obsessions and mental compulsions. And I also struggle with false memory OCD, so most of my thoughts are like past based. And I also have POCD. Most of my content is taboo. Yeah, the content that's been the most distressing for me was POCD. I went through various themes, but it eventually led to POCD. So yeah, I just wanted to give you kind of 3 takeaways that I got from exposure response prevention. First, I would say is that discomfort is where your growth will happen. So as hard as it is, you are going to have to lean into those difficult feelings that arise with having obsessions. And usually you know that these feelings are associated with these OCD obsessions. So as you learn to kind of identify the cycle, it will become easier and easier to lean into those feelings. So when I say lean into feelings, I mean when you have an obsession, when you have a thought, an urge, an image, something pop up in your mind, obviously you're told to accept the thought, but what you're also going to want to do is accept all the feelings that arise with that thought. So, fear. For me, it's always been a lot of fear and guilt and shame. And obviously, there's a lot of anxiety, just a lot of discomfort in general. And you are going to want to lean into that as much as you can, because that is what you don't want to fight back. And that is how you kind of break the OCD cycle in ERP. You have to understand the obsession as that whole. It comes with the thoughts, the images, the urges, and then all the feelings and emotions that come with that. And for so long, I was given metaphors of like trying to see my thought as like a passing cloud, and I was like, I see that thought, I'm sitting with that thought. But I was trying to still escape those feelings of like guilt and shame and trying to figure those out. And I never understood that OCD experience, you have to accept it as a whole. And that was a huge learning curve for me when I found out that that's what it means. Accepting your thoughts is accepting the whole OCD experience. The compulsions, you're trying to figure something out so that you can avoid feeling those feelings. And that's really what ERP through this behavioral model tries to break, is learn that you can have all these obsessions, but you don't have to do anything about it. You are safe and you do not need to compulse, basically. Second takeaway I would say is that rumination is not problem solving. I have spent so much time, over the last 6 years mentally reviewing, because obviously most of my obsessions have been like, I'm scared I did something, like a past thing. So yeah, I've spent hours mentally reviewing something. This is not, but by the way, only for past based, it's anything related to OCD. You're gonna want to, whatever you're trying to ruminate, analyze, figure out, any of those mental compulsions, you need to learn that they're not working in your favor. These behaviors are actually making you go deeper into the cycle, and that's not something you want. I as I've said, I've spent so many hours trying to mentally review, trying to figure that little thing out, that little itch that you want to scratch. And I know exactly the feeling. Like, I've been there so many times. But I'm telling you that even when I did scratch that itch, I hope you know what I mean when I say that, but like that little thing you're trying to get to in your thinking and your analyzing, I got there at times and I was able to get some relief out of that, but that only lasted a couple hours, gave me relief for a couple hours. It is not a sustainable thing for the long term. So I really recommend just learning that rumination is not going to help you, and it's actually going to confuse you even more as you ruminate something over and over again or mentally review something over and over again. Things are going to get distorted. OCD is going to latch onto that. It's going to make you even more confused, and that's really not the rabbit hole you want to go into. The third takeaway is that ERP is meant to be a kind of lifestyle. So you're obviously gonna, through therapy, learn about ERP and then implement it in a very specific plan. So you'll have like planned exposures, planned response prevention. But at the end of the day, your therapist, if they're a good therapist, are trying to give you the tools for you to be your own therapist. So you want to implement ERP in your everyday life. So notice the cycles, notice the obsessions and the compulsions, and slowly try to, like, when you're crossing that bridge into compulsion, be like, nope, I've been there, I've done that, and stop in your tracks. It's like a mental exercise. It's like a muscle you're trying to build of like stopping in your tracks and not trying to find that relief and prioritizing your mental health and getting better in the long term. Obviously, this can be really hard at first because emotions are very strong and sometimes they convince you of something. But what you're gonna learn is that any emotions involved in the OCD cycle, you're going to be able to identify them as the OCD cycle and be like, I've had that exact thought before, I've had that exact obsession, I've felt exactly those things, and what did that compulsion serve me? Nothing. So you're gonna know that it is safe to drop those compulsions and feel those feelings, if that makes sense. So it will get easier and easier as you go. You'll start knowing exactly what your OCD concerns are, what the cycle is, what your obsessions are, and that'll make it way easier to break the cycle at the end of the day.